It looks like there's.
We are live.
Yeah,
it's
like,
yeah.
I've cleaned it 3 times.
We are live.
We are live. Okay, this is Senate Finance. It is 7:15, and we are back from the floor. And Kirby, we left you and the tax department. We wanted to see what we could do with a cloud tax. We were talking about some carve outs. But we understand this is a very new and technically complex thing, the cloud. And wanted to see what you could draft with the specificity that would allow the tax department to administer it without it becoming so confusing that people got in trouble who knows what to do. It's yours.
Yes, so Kirby Keene, Legislative Council, after discussion with the Department of Taxes and JFO. We found that from an administrative point of view, the easiest way to get at some of the goals that have been discussed would actually be to not have an exemption, but to also not specify to the same degree as we had specified when enacting the cloud tax. In other words, the law would not specify vendor hosted software and some of these other things. What it would do is, here I'll share my screen.
I'm wondering I need Senator Chittenden, he's moving 4 spots. Or we'll just vote it without.
We discussed this with,
Okay, so he does know what.
he is aware and does not oppose it as far as I know.
Okay. Okay, that's here. Okay.
So there's a repeal, of course, of the prohibition on taxing pre-written software access remotely. And the language was removed here so that now the law does specify that pre-written computer software is taxable regardless of the method in which the pre-written computer software is paid for, delivered, or accessed. But that is it, and some would say
That's what's
that,
in the House bill.
some would say that clearly makes software as a service taxable, but it does not clearly make infrastructure as a service and platform as a service in all of the different forms. Some of them may be taxable, some way, like some things that are considered that may be taxable. It would depend on the use of software.
Okay.
Uh,
We leave it to the tax department to determine what falls under that definition.
yes.
Okay,
And so there's no need for an exemption, but there would be in the future greater need of clarity through formal rulings and other things from the Department of Taxes, which the commissioner said it was okay for me to say that is something that can be administered.
okay.
But, and so it's hard to have an estimate on this. I don't want to throw Ted completely because this is this is an ambiguous way of doing it. But there will be a revenue reduction presumably.
A revenue, from the 20 million or
From the 20.
Okay, yes,
Uh,
but we have raised more in the short-term rental.
and I did go ahead and change the short-term rental to 3%,
Okay,
but roughly, and I don't want to speak for JFO, but my understanding is that having the cloud tax like this and having a 3% short-term rental surcharge, comes up, that achieves is there a third part?
No, sorry, you should go ahead.
I believe.
sales tax on end clothing.
Oh, yeah, so, go ahead. No, so so I think, for the record, temporary to my fiscal office. I, kind of based on, conversations that were had about the implementation, my sense is that, this would be potentially closer to 15 million. That's, I mean, done with
Okay.
very compared to the full 20.4 million in the House and 10 million for SAS, only, but that's like, would want to emphasize how
Right.
preliminary that is, given all the conversations
Okay.
I just heard over the past 45 minutes. And so that in combination with a 3% short-term rental surcharge, which, given what the commissioner said about an extra month, would be 11.4 million. You're talking 15 million plus 11.4 million. And so the question would be, that's 5.6, but the question with, 15 plus 11.4, you're at 26 and a half out of the goal of 27. And so you may or may not need clothing if you.
Seems like you met your goal without clothing.
Okay, okay, we're close to 27. All right, does that work? Draft it. And we can get on, where is my copy of the bill? We have been through several iterations of this. I'm reading it, I think this is my bill, that. That we have agreed with the CFA, the whole work through so that it doesn't really change anything, it's just the way the calculation is done. When we add and subtract, it reduces that difference between the tax rate that is voted on and the CLA addition. But the bottom line is the same. That's just been a problem, is it looks like the CLA does a great inflation to your tax rate. The excess spending threshold, what do we want to do with that? I think we decided we could drop it to 16,000,
116%.
160%. Okay,
From 121. That was that line she showed.
so we're gonna put more cost containment, more pressure on schools to come down.
I will support that tonight. I just would love to know how those dots skew towards
Yeah.
larger districts. I'm concerned larger districts are going to be penalized by it.
And if it
So-
looks really bad, it's going to, probes are coming in on Monday, as they announced. And they're going to do that. Senator, you look pained.
Yeah, the high spending penalty
Yes,
has always struck me as basically kicking people when they're down. They're already getting saddled with a high expensive budget, and now we're gonna make it more. But, and I don't think school boards tend to be sloppy with money. I think they work really hard to keep them, and then they have to face the town. And the towns often, because we get around to many school districts, and the townspeople abuse the school board. It's a hard, and now this year with the number of budgets being voted down. I don't think they need that threat.
well, we've always had it. It has court to keep. You think twice before you know you're gonna get a double penalty. Doesn't stop them from doing it. If the voters want to, they can do it. It's set at 160% of the average, so you got a lot of wiggle room there. So we can do that. What else am I missing in there? That we need to talk about, make sure I've got the right.
Property transfer tax. Are we all?
No, that's not in this bill. That's what in the housing
sorry.
bill.
Property
It
tax credit.
probably should, property tax credit. Oh, that's the other thing. If we raise the 27, Julia, we've raised 27 million. That gets our tax down to 12.
Yep, so for the record, Julia Richter, JFO. So assuming the 26 million rough estimate in terms of additional revenues that you're raising. That ends up with an average bill change across all three classes, non-homestead, homestead and income of 12.5% increase.
Assuming the 25 million from there,
That's assuming the 25 million and the 26 million.
that's across the board. Non-homestead and homestead.
And correct for the average bill change.
I would support taking out what the House did, which they basically raised the non-homestead rate, putting it on the backs of renters to increase the property tax credit for the property owners, the lower incomes. Get rid of that.
I have, especially since we've heard from all the affordable housing people who can't raise their rent. I would like to leave that out and hope that by getting it down to 12, we've taken some of the big bite out. Because it's, like they said, we can't raise the homestead property because then we're charging people to give themselves a break. But if the other way, we're charging renters to give homeowners a break. Well, I guess we've been told we can't kind of. And all businesses are not the same. We've got some downtowns that are struggling, so. I think we'll leave it at that. I think this is going to a conference. But I could be surprised.
And I just say that's where I'm not saying it's like a do or die for me, I just, I don't think it, with the buy down further, I just don't think this is necessary.
This is house language.
Correct.
So subdivision 4A is what you're talking about, and then 4B is just a conforming thing having to do with the December 1 letter
Yeah.
and what he, so, this is the extra property tax credit. I do want to note, if you do keep the language, that I did make a tweak in this version of the amendment for you. It's just the citation is different than the House version.
Okay,
If we,
Yeah.
follow up on that,
I'm trying to see what we have in there.
looking at Julia to do some on the spot math, but if it's left in, you just gave the estimate of 12.5 across homestead, non-homesteads, but if we left this in, it would go. How much would the homesteads go down and the non-homesteads would then be up approximately 15%?
I'm sorry, don't.
If we do what the House did,
Oh,
then it would be approximately 15.
yeah, so I don't do on the spot math, but I have already done this math. So to do the house construct where you're bumping up the property tax credit by 12.5%.
Not 14.97.
So the House did the 14.97 because originally they had solved for an average uniform bill change, that was 14.97. So now you brought that 14.97 down to 12.5.
Yep.
So if you were to follow the same contract of bumping it up by the same percentage, you'd be bumping it up by 12.5%.
Okay.
Which would be
The non-homestead rate of
20 million, that puts you at a average bill change for non-homestead of 15.1%.
and the homestead
Increase.
would be a little bit less.
The non-home, so that's the non-homestead, the homestead would still be the 12.5% increase, right? Because we're holding that constant and we're paying for the bump in the property tax credit solely through the non-homestead rate increase.
I support removing this. I don't think we need to do it with a buy down. That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Kirby. Can we start with section 1 of this? Oh, we still need to talk to Beth, though. Yeah, we still have half of this to do. But look at what isn't in that first couple of sections, all the stuff we've played with. And just let us know if we've missed something going through this, because we kind of jumped around the taxes and yields. And, oh, yes, what we haven't done is the yield, which is what the bill is supposed to do. And it's in here, I just saw it, it does set the yield.
Yeah, section 2. Well, I mean, the yield numbers are there since the other revenue parts have changed. I'm going to assume that those will need to be updated.
The yield will be a little different, okay.
Right, so in order for, like, right now, the yields that you're looking at in the bill and the non-homestead rate you're looking at the bill are reflecting the House position on everything.
Okay.
So with the revenues that you're adding
Okay,
and the updated data, the yields and the non-homestead rate need to be adjusted to account for that 12.5%.
okay,
And-
so can we do that tonight?
Yes, I have been
Okay.
working on that modeling, I think I heard the committee, but I would like explicit direction as to whether or not that non-homestead is covering the property tax credit increase, if there is a property tax credit increase or not.
Okay. Straw poll. Are we going to put the property, stick with the house, raise the non-property tax 3% higher in order to lower, that will lower the. In order to give a in order to raise the property tax credit this year. To it. And then are we gonna do that, raise the non-homestead property tax, which includes rental housing. In order to increase the property tax credit this year. We'll do the McDonald, now we'll raise hand,
To
And
go with the
what-
house,
no, we not go with the house,
not go with the house.
okay.
What is the contrast and what's the house?
The house raised non-homestead property. There, when they were looking at it, they were looking at a 15% property tax increase across the board. They raised the non-homestead property 3% to 18 in order to raise 20-some million to give income sensitized taxpayers and 15% increase in the property tax payments.
To get it down to that.
To get it, to buy down. But they'll get that credit next year. So we'd have to deal with, or we'll wait and see what happens next year.
And what are we polling on now?
We're voting on. If you vote yes, you're not gonna go along with the house. Because non-homestead property includes rental property. So you're gonna give an 18% rent increase. It also includes all our affordable housing we had down the street in here. And they can't raise their taxes by law. Their taxes are perpetually, their rate, they can't raise their rent. It's perpetually affordable. Which leaves them holding a very expensive bill. And they don't have revenue raisers to cover it. If it came out of somewhere, it would come out of the cost, the money that we're putting in to build housing. So,
Renters rebate doesn't play into this really.
no, renters rebate is really for very.
Where did that come from?
Doesn't matter. Comes by.
Matters to me.
We've got some time. It,
I got 5 large pizzas coming for everybody, they should be here soon. so,
Wow.
yeah.
all right, so we would increase property taxes on landlords, which would result in increase.
Right.
There are no easy decisions in this. I don't think anybody
And it's
feels.
the sum total though of all that we are doing by everything we do to limit the tax increase on homeowners from maybe 20% to 15%.
We're dropping it from, right now, because budgets are coming down, it was 14.58 or 38. Rounded to 15, we're gonna drop it to 12.5 by raising the additional money. And if we don't do what the House did, because we've gotten that rate down. We hope 25 million coming from the waterfall. It may not be necessary to kind of balance that with increasing renters more.
So the net effect based on the assumption that we've got the 25 million coming from the waterfall, is that 12% then?
Yeah. Right?
So you're asking the 12.5%, does that include the waterfall?
Yes.
Correct, it does. So the modeling is assuming the 25 million from the waterfall plus the 26 million this committee is raising. Uniformly using that to lower property tax rates or tax bills across all three classes. Which gets to a uniform, that gets to an average bill increase across all three classes of 12.5%. And I just, one slight caveat, because originally I was modeling with 27, and now the committee is raising 26. The final yield, however you decide to vote, the yield and the rates that are being shown on the screen are gonna be slightly different, just to account for that.
Well, my question, and that's the committee to be thinking about, is we're trying to prevent, among other things, people from losing their homes because of a huge tax increase. And if you have a huge tax increase to 20% or 12%, are we still going to have pretty deleterious effect on a lot of people? And is there,
No,
well, I guess the question, as I say, is in terms of what we're shooting for, should we shoot for a number below 12%? Should there be something else that we put in here, such as an adjustment to the sales tax rate or something else that should make a material difference? It will not, none of this will be popular.
no,
None of it will be.
None of this will be popular on the
No,
one hand, but on the other hand, when you consider that notion of how many people, particularly who lower middle income people, who will be able to afford a 12% increase in their property taxes.
and we looked at sales tax rate yesterday. And that would have made us the highest in New
Right.
England.
And it would be the simplest.
And would be, I came in this morning and suggested an income tax surcharge for 5 years for educational transition, but that was DOA because it wouldn't, we have dedicated to the enterprise. But it would be progressive, clean and neat. Sales tax is regressive. And it'll hit those same lower income people hard. So I don't.
12.5 is better than where it was, and going any further is, can we retread, go cover ground we're just digging into, and I don't know where that money would come from.
I don't even,
1.5 is an average. What's the highest?
no, 12.5, it will depend on your local school budget, your local CLA.
And that's again another issue, because there could be some people who are not at all, they could be, still in a stratosphere level.
I think. Yes, on the other hand, the voters voted in these budgets. We have a problem. I'm hoping if we ever get to the front section of this bill, that we can set it up so that next year we might start working on an actual solution. Right now, it costs a lot. We have grades, not classrooms, grades with less than 10 kids in them. And we have schools with less than 100, less than 50 kids in them. And we have a principal, and we have a kindergarten teacher. And it's just, we can't. But
Can
this
we
is
wait
what
till
it
next
is now.
year to do this?
Well, I don't know how we do it this year.
Well, right now, I mean, there are a couple of things in the bill that focus on, dealing with revenue studies, whatever the case may be. And it seems to me we need to do something more aggressive this year that goes to the issue of how do we reduce costs, not just how do we raise revenue, how do we reduce costs?
Well,
And whether that constitutes some mandates at this point.
that's,
In legislation now, rather than a year from now, where everybody studies it, we come back again to the same problem next year.
I don't think we can move the education establishment quickly enough to make a difference this year.
So we've
I
just
think
been
we
trying to
have
move
to
it for
admit-
at least 20 years that I'm aware of without success.
I think what's happened this year is that these tax rates have hit the wall. You know, before, we've been saying this for a while. It's suddenly hitting the voters that we can't keep doing this. This isn't because everybody's going out and building a sports stadium or giving their teachers, top grade salaries in the nation. We're not. This is because the system itself is expensive. And they've got behavioral problems, they've got, from all kinds of different things.
I'd like to see some action in terms of something within the bill that charges someone, and that someone probably is either the education establishment or someone higher in state government to come back with a plan for reducing the cost of educating by X% or X amount for
That's-
this legislature comes
okay.
back.
If we can agree on the numbers part, then we can, I've been told, yesterday I was told the ed committee didn't care if we put in their thing. Apparently, they've now decided they do care, so we'll have to draft. This is number one. There's some advisory committees in there. I don't know what they're going to do. I think I really don't want to put that ed committee thing in just because it's so florid and talks about consultants. If there's any consultants, I want us to get them. I'm not even sure we've got money for per diems, but
So I definitely want to talk about that and the studies and the cost containment, and I think you missed the excess spending threshold conversation that we talked about right before you got in. On the point of
Yeah.
the question that you were raising, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I want to have on the screen is Julia's, and I'm not vouching for this data, but this is what she presented. You'll see the two highlighted pieces. The highlighted pieces in column C, uniform 12.5%. That's what we're talking about
Right.
if we don't take the House of Language. If
the
we
next one is the house.
this is the House of Language where they effectively have differential rates, which I understand this is not normal. We have not had this rate differentiated before, so this would be a first time. It's a policy choice. With their bill, would increase the your bill, put it up to 15%, and that money goes right down here. See this 19.8 million, that's generated from this differential. So we're effectively charging all the non-homestead rates, which are businesses, ski slopes, and very importantly, rentals. So we're putting, in my opinion, on the backs of renters, another 19.8 million to the income sensitized property owners. Since we haven't done that before, I don't think we need to do it now. So that's where I support removing this. But if the committee is persuaded otherwise, I just think it's a point that I think is worth the consideration. I would support going with just this uniform 12.5% across the board. They didn't have the $25 million information that we now have.
We're hoping.
Yep.
Right, my concern is that there are renters who, if they were homeowners and qualify for a tax credit, but they're not poor enough to qualify for the renter credit program. That's pretty low income. Those folks are probably covered under the super circuit breaker, the 47%. So I would like to not do that. We've lowered the excess spending threshold, and then I would like to move on. This is our stopgap to get it through this year. I want to move on to how we're not going to solve it by next year, but how we're going to map out a strategy to move us out of what is the system. But any of us who are here for Act 46 knows that this is going to be a controversial, and it'll be a very painful discussion.
Motion maker's not here, so I mean, maybe what I'll do is, and it fails, I'll say I would move that we strike the language in the bill that increases the non-homestead rate to generate this money down for the property tax.
Senator McDonald, have you got a voting sheet?
Maybe we can do a straw poll too, I
I-
want to share out of this.
We gotta move it, so Senator Chittenden has moved that we strike the language in the House that increases the non-homestead property tax rate in order to buy down the bump.
Property tax credit.
There's no way to just separate the non-property tax rate, that is lodgings and rentals from the rest of it.
We were told by staff, you weren't in here, that it was very mechanically difficult to do that.
But there's optimism, they're coming back with the study this December, so that next year they should be able to change those numbers.
Strike.
Alright.
I'm sorry.
Strike the section in.
Do you, are you comfortable with what I
We got a
stated?
section, let me find the section
I
in
don't
the
know
middle.
which section it is in the bill.
It's section 2, subdivision 4.
Section 2 subdivision 4, we strike it.
Yes.
We should technically be voting on column C and not column E.
Yeah, I can vote, with great discomfort, I can vote for that, provided we guarantee that we include a cost reduction mechanism charge study that begins now, not a year from now after
Oh,
somebody thinks
okay.
about what to put in it.
But we asked the tax commissioner last night, we put in the excess spending threshold, we dropped it down. What else is there that, how else, I mean, the budgets are going down, that's your first cost reduction thing. They've come down enough so that we're looking at lower increases, and some of them are gonna be voted and probably voted down a third time. I'm not sure what else we could, I'm not sure what the levers are.
Well, the levers are not necessarily levers that we have the ability easily to pull.
Right,
But the levers, I think, are a plan that we can then look at when we're back to say, of these things that are in the plan, or these things that are in the outline of things that we can do, these are things that we are willing to bite the bullet and do.
okay,
And I mean, they can be things like, we're not gonna have any schools that have less than X number of kids in it, period, and we've got to move with that rate. We're going to
we're
take
going
every
to the
position that has the word deputy in it and eliminate it. I
We're
mean,
going
it may sound arbitrary,
we're
but
going,
if you're a business and you're trying to get to a bottom line budget, you don't sit for 20 years and debate how you're going to do it. Somebody has to make a decision.
and that, what is it, Poco?
And what we have to do is at least key up the choices, and we've never done that.
Well, I think that's what I'd like to get to.
But we have to initiate it now.
Yes,
That's my point.
that we can do when we get to language.
That's the next
Right now, I have a motion on the
Understood.
floor, which is to strike that section that raises the property tax rate for non-homestead properties. Further discussion, if not, all those in favor of striking, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
I'm hearing that as 5-1-1. Okay. Now, what else haven't we done here?
Is that enough for what you two need?
So
I
What else
just
was
hit delete.
missed? I'm gonna do that.
okay,
I'm
before,
trying to finish the numbers so they can start drafting numbers.
before, I just want to confirm that you have landed on the 26 million for revenues. You've landed on striking the PTC bump. You'd like it modeled so that there's an average uniform bill change across homestead, non-homestead, and income for an increase of 12.5%. Okay,
I would have, there was one other change, I don't think it affects Julia, just for while we're summarizing.
Yep,
In August 1 effective date for the short-term rental.
for the short-term rental.
Surcharge.
And I thought did they need that for? No, I guess not if the tax commissioner was
The
gonna.
department needed it to get it going.
Yeah, I was wondering about the cloud tax. Do they need? At one point, I thought that he said that would take a different form, so, okay.
We need 2 more months.
One,
I
was
don't-
July need another month, if type of forms. You know? If he needs another,
Jake Feldman, tax department, I can text Craig and ask him, I don't remember what he said about, the software.
when we were talking about software, he said he would need a new form. Cause it's software or something, I guess would have to be put on the sales tax.
I think you mentioned outreach, but there is no need of a change for form.
Okay,
That's what he
It's
said.
just this.
okay, we'll leave it as is unless we get yelled at. Okay. We've agreed to lower the best spending rate to the 160%.
60.
We've agreed to keep the CLA. And we agreed on our tax package. And analyst position. There is an analyst position in here that will have to go to approach. That's probably why they're getting it. Yes.
Okay, never mind.
No,
Never mind.
the cloud taxes and short-term rental impact we did.
Just
There's
basic.
appropriations, which we're not dealing with. And I think. Footprint of the system, acquisition. Geographic, socioeconomic needs. Racial equity department, okay. That's all that study. And I think I still have it. This is the houses studies, or the houses.
So should I change these with Beth to go over the study? notes
Yes,
that was
I'll just-
requested?
That we're gonna have to put this in.
Why don't we wait for me to get to the seat and we'll reorient
Okay,
policy, how's
that sounds
Alright.
good. This is not. We can, technically, the House has not, the House, the Ed Committee hasn't had. Possession of this. But we don't have to add it, is what I'm saying. My concern is. And I'll let. Talk about what it does, but we've got it down to, I think, 11 people. But they're studying the education system as it is. I'm hoping, I think, more along the lines of Senator Brock, that we are going to ask for a plan. The easiest way I thought to do it was to bring our school size, class size in line with national standards, which are considered optimal for a good education, which somebody told me was like 300 students for an elementary school and 500 for a high school. Beth, you probably know more than I do, but it's more like 10 to 12 kids in grammar school and 15 to 18 and ours are way below that in many schools. So I thought that might be the way to drive the discussion as to how do we achieve that. Because right now, we've got union districts, I've got 2 of them, they have 4 or 5 elementary schools within 10 or 15 miles of each other. Every one of those schools has a principal, they probably have a guidance counselor, they might have an assistant principal. And they've got very small classes. Our money is going to to administrators, services. And if we put them all together, which is what we hoped would happen in 46, we could have 1 principal instead of 5. We could have 1 guidance counselor. We could, some of the personnel go with the building. And we have too many buildings for the number of kids we've got. We built out for the baby boom. Our school age population has been dropping since the 1980s,
Excuse me.
but well over 2 decades. And it's not going up.
The mini boom, they call
It was called the baby boom.
it. No, the one in the 80s.
Oh, there's a mini.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was when the boomers kids were.
And my kids were, my kids.
Oh. In the 80s?
Eleven-year-old.
Yeah, but since then, what you
Yeah,
described is
yeah,
taking place.
Yeah, our population is aging, kids are gone. Yeah, okay, so Beth,
Yes, Beth St. James, Office of Legislative Counsel. So I think what would be helpful is if we just reorient to the policy pieces that are in the bill so that you know what's in the bill.
yeah,
And then I have brought you language that is not in the bill, but we have on your website and we can walk through. Is to begin the conversation of a study related more to education finance than to overall education policy. So, would you like me to share my screen?
yes, that would be, I think, very helpful.
So I'm gonna look at the bill as passed by the House, and we can decide where to go from there. How's that?
Okay. We have both of them. Well, we have, that bill is the one we've been looking at. We haven't touched it.
Okay, so section 1 is the Commission on the Future of Public Education. And this is the giant education study that will take place between now and the deliverable is due in December of 2025. The Senate Education Committee did work on this section. And I don't think that language is on your website, but I have it. Do you want to look at that?
I guess so. I'm not, my computer is not, there we go. See if I can get it on the website. Yeah, everybody can see it. If you put it up, then everyone.
Enlargement. Yeah.
Okay.
That's.
So this is section 1 of the House passed version with the changes proposed by Senate Education. This is, you'll see at the top there, it's draft 3.1. So all of the changes they made are not going to be highlighted. This is the most recent draft they have. I wasn't sure how it was making its way to you all, so this is what we're working with what was on Senate Ed's website.
Right.
So I will do my best to highlight what's different from the House passed version, but there's not a lot that's different.
So got the highlighted version.
Okay, so they didn't make any changes to the creation section. But they did make significant changes to the membership section. So Secretary of Ed, Chair of State Board, Tax Commissioner, all the same. They took the number of House members from 3 to 1. The number of Senate members from 2 to 1.
I was gonna do all 3 of all 2. One is even better.
The rep, everywhere you see highlighted with 1, it was 2 or 3 votes. And then, so they took it down from, I think, 23 to 13 members.
Oh, they're up, okay. Now, if you told me 11, but 13's better than 22.
Well, it ends with 13, so. I think we're 13, we're at 13. Do you want to talk about this section of the commission any further or move on?
Can we just go down the list?
Secretary of Ed,
There's about 20 people.
They're
13.
13. It was 23. This is what the Committee on Education is asking us to put in this bill instead of what came to us from the House. We are talking about putting in a completely different study. We can do both. My concern is if we have too many, they could be working at cross purposes. So we should probably move through what the purpose of this is.
Oh, yeah, did we pass the purpose of this one or?
Have we not, I thought did we not walk through this section
No,
yet?
we have not walked
Okay.
through this section.
So let's do that. So the Commission on the Future of Public Education is created. And there's some language that we've borrowed from state policy here. The right to education is fundamental for the success of Vermont's children in a rapidly changing society and global marketplace, as well as for the state's own economic and social prosperity. The commission shall study the provision of education in Vermont and make recommendations for a statewide vision for Vermont public education system to ensure that all students are afforded substantially equal educational opportunities in an efficient, sustainable, and stable education system. The commission shall also make recommendations for the strategic policy changes necessary to make that vision a reality.
That's it, like that.
There's 10 more pages to this commission.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
This is for everybody.
Thank
You know, back there.
What a guy.
Okay.
Obviously, I said I recall.
Mr.
Grab that bag, Mark. Here, I'm gonna bring this. What do you want?
Yeah, the one thing I saw in that paragraph, at least in terms of some of my concerns, the word sustainable is mentioned.
Yeah.
Nowhere does it talk about providing this at a cost Vermont's taxpayers can afford.
I am not seeing this as anything that this committee is going to work with. We can choose to put it on because the ed committee would like it. But it doesn't do anything that needs to be done, and I'm concerned it might get in the way. To have two committees running at the same time and getting two different visions might be very difficult.
Would you like to walk through this language, or would you like to move directly to the more ed fund related language I
Yeah.
drafted to start the conversation?
Well, I'll leave it to the committee what they would like to do.
Well,
So,
I'm not saying necessarily we should do it. If we're going to do it, I think we should probably take it upon ourselves to tweak the line. I would add, for example, that not only is education essential to students, but it is a right provided for explicitly in the Vermont Constitution.
Right.
And,
Where's the first mention of outcome? Oh,
I missed.
Oh, you-
one
you-
page again, and I couldn't go.
certainly, yeah.
Thank
Say the chicken,
Very,
and
very
calling
hard.
out for breakfast.
Here, I'll give you something.
okay, let's just walk
Yeah.
through this.
You wanna walk through the entire section? There is a lot to it.
There is a lot to it. Can you do a 2020 thing?
Absolutely. So, we just talked at kind of the overarching vision of the creation. We've walked through the membership.
Okay.
13 members, there would be a 5-member steering group to provide some leadership to this organization
Yeah,
and to be the liaison essentially with the consultants that will come later. To develop a work plan for the commission. And they could form subcommittees of the commission.
okay.
The commission's required to consult with certain entities. In the interest of time, I'm just gonna scroll instead of walking through them. The commission is also required to take into consideration existing ed laws and policy, legislative reports, and 4 specific recent pieces of legislation, Act 46, Act 173, Act 127, and Act 76, which is last year's child care bill. Duties of the commission.
Is one of those like the last time we did something like this?
No, Act 46 was the
Okay.
consolidation.
Right,
Act 173 is special education. Act 127 was the weights. And Act 76 is the child care bill.
okay,
I believe those were the most recent pieces of major legislation that impacted the ed fund.
okay.
Everything we've done.
If you have some proposed changes in the steering group section that we can find, you want that in?
Okay, we're either going to do this or not do it. This is ed policy and the ed committee has made these changes, which are minimal. we have another thing that is starting to draft, which is more along the lines of what we were talking about. So no, we are not touching this one. This is theirs. Or what? If we're, yeah.
Thank you. If we're not touching it, right?
Oh.
So you're proposing to drop all this language.
I'm saying, I don't think that this is so broad and so unspecific that we can, and there's still a lot of people, and we can just get caught up in talking about the glories of public education and how we need better curriculum and better, and not talk about the problem with, I don't see where this deals with the problem we're dealing with this year. And this is so huge, it will suck up so much time and energy. It may make some members of the Ed Committee unhappy, but we've got an awful lot more pressing issues to deal with before we can start talking about.
Really quick, the small box is gluten free, so if anybody's gluten free, the small box is. Sorry.
Can I better understand, I mean, just so I'm thinking about how to use our time efficiently. You don't want us to consider any changes to this. We should understand what's in it to see what's missing.
I think we should, I don't care if we walk through it, it's a
Okay.
thing of time.
Yeah.
And if we get it, we know, I think we should know where it is, what's in it before we decide not to do it. But I don't think it is all as structured with it. There's a report on the future of education that doesn't say we need a report on how we're getting the cost of education down. That's the issue we're dealing with.
Perhaps we could ask questions about seeing if stuff is in there that we want to see, or if it's somewhere else. Yeah.
Respectfully, I think we could be here all night with you asking me questions.
Okay.
And me saying, yeah, no, maybe.
Yeah,
kind of.
it is
Okay, what should we
after
do?
8:00. I don't have the drive that most of you do. So I would like to just either do this at 2,000 feet
Okay.
or. And then we will look at the next thing. And we can incorporate anything we want into the next thing, okay?
Yeah, but where the money, we should be figuring out how to pay for all this.
Yes. And that's what I'm hoping we're gonna do. So let's move this
Okay.
through really fast.
Duties of the commission, they have to study everything that we're about to talk about in order to ensure that students are afforded quality educational opportunities in an efficient, sustainable, and equitable education system that will enable students to achieve the highest academic outcomes.
At a substantially lower price.
I like that.
The commission,
We're not editing it.
The commission is required to undertake a public engagement process that I'm going to skip over in the interest of time. But there is a public engagement process baked in. And then there are 5 topics. One of them is a catch-all. Anything else the commission wants to study? So I'm gonna talk about 4. The first topic is governance, resources, and administration. And here are the individual pieces that at a minimum, under the governance overview, the commission is required to look at. So whether changes need to be made to the structure of AOE, including whether it better serves the recommended education vision of the state as an agency or department. What are the staffing needs of the agency? Whether changes need to be made to the composition, role, and function of the state board. What roles, functions, or decisions should be a function of local control? And what roles, functions, or decisions should be a function of control at the state level? The effective integration of career and technical education in the recommended vision. That's all under governance. The next overarching topic is the physical size and footprint of the education system. So an analysis of the current number and location of school buildings, school districts, and supervisory unions, and whether additional consolidation is needed to achieve Vermont's vision for education. Provided that if there is a recommendation for any amount of consolidation, they have to come back with an implementation plan. An analysis of the capacity and ability to staff all public schools with a qualified workforce driven by data on class size recommendations. An analysis of whether and if so how collaboration with Vermont's post-secondary schools may support the development and retention of a qualified educator workforce. An analysis of the current town tuition program and whether and if so, what changes are necessary to meet Vermont's vision for education, including the legal and financial impact of funding independent schools and other private institutions, including whether designation should play a role, and the financial impact of ed fund public dollars being used in schools located outside Vermont.
So could you go back and just go over that and start that again, that last part, and analysis of the current?
No, that, we're not, this is a walkthrough, we're either doing it or not doing it,
Okay,
okay? It is 8:15. You have to go home before midnight. We just don't have time, they gave us 4 days, the other body had 4 months.
An analysis.
This is proof.
I know.
An analysis of the current use of private therapeutic schools and the provision of special ed services, and whether there are any changes necessary to that system. So that's physical size and footprint of the system. Then the third topic is the role of public schools. So the commission is charged with looking at how public education in Vermont should be delivered. Whether Vermont's vision for public education should include the provision of wraparound supports and co-location of services. Whether and if so, how collaboration with Vermont post-secondary schools may support and strengthen the delivery of public ed. And what the consequences are for the commission's recommendations regarding the role of public schools and other service providers, including the role of public schools means for staffing, funding, and any other affected system, the goal of most efficiently utilizing state funds and services and maximizing federal funding. This is getting at drawing down federal funds through the provision of certain health care or mental health services, and the balance between where those services should be provided to maximize federal funding. The fourth topic, and I will just spoil this.
No, please.
So what we're about to walk through, I have plunked pretty much into the separate education finance study.
Okay,
So I think it's worth, since this is your focus, reading through the introductory paragraph here. So the commission shall explore the efficacy and potential equity gains of changes to the education funding system. And again, this is language passed by the House. So what we will hopefully walk through next has a little bit more generic language, but including weighted educational opportunity payments as a method to fund public education. The commission's recommendation shall be intended to result in an education funding system designed to afford substantially equal access to a quality basic education for all Vermont students in accordance with Brigham. So here's what the House passed version has. Allowable uses of the education fund that shall ensure sustainable and equitable use of state fund. The method for setting the tax rates to sustain allowable uses of the ed fund. Implementation details for any recommended and implementation details for any recommended changes. So that's it. And then what the deliverables for this commission is a written work plan to you all by September 15th of this year.
they're gonna do all that by December 15th?
Nope, just a written work plan. They're gonna tell you what their plan is to get all of that done. They're gonna give you a preliminary report with short-term cost containment considerations for the 2025 legislative session on or before December 15th of this year. They're gonna give you their final report by December 1, 2025. And any proposed legislative language to advance any ed fund system recommendation. So AOE is leading the charge on assistance here. And they are tasked with contracting with one or more independent consultants or facilitators to provide the technical and legal assistance for the work required under this section.
And that would be within their budget, because I don't believe there's any money in the.
Well, there is an appropriation, we'll get there.
Oh,
Well, it's not an appropriation, I'll walk through that. AOE is also, there's specific language in here tasking AOE with providing the educational and financial data necessary to facilitate the work of the commission. And school districts, language to require school districts to comply with any data requests. I think we can skip over the meeting part, it's pretty self-explanatory and regular. I'm sorry?
Is it the one that has 30 meetings?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Remember, this is over 2 years.
Right.
And let's see.
And it includes subcommittee.
Correct. Oh, I guess that language is not included here. So there was in the bill as. Section 1A of the House passed version contains this language meant to fund the work of the commission. So last year in the budget, you all appropriated $200,000 to AOE for the school construction task force. They did not use all of that money, and they still have that money. So we're just amending that appropriation to make the commission's work an allowable use of that appropriation. I believe it's somewhere around $150,000 that's left.
So we have $150,000 in steel. Okay.
So that is, what we just walked through was almost exclusively what the House did. There were a few changes by your education committee. One thing we didn't walk through that I'll just mention is that the commission is required to have at least one meeting, whether it's the full commission or a subcommittee in every county.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about anything else related to section 1?
So I do have a Word document with inline edit where I just added some key terms because I found my biggest shortcoming, and there's a lot of good work in here.
Yeah.
Representative Brady did great work, as well as many others on House Ed. I just want to see more potential cost containment, spending controls, and opportunity efficiencies. I just didn't see enough of that in some of the charges. I saw something just in that one piece. So I did share that, I think with Kirby. So we do want to keep this language. I do have 7 instances where I would just add those key terms.
To me, there is so much in that charge.
Yeah.
That the funding issues, the size issues are going to get lost. It has no real direction. It's talking about the bright and glorious future that we want. But the thing that's stopping it is the voters can't afford the cost. And I think this would be a great thing to do once we get a handle on that cost. And then, but I just see this as it's uplifting, it feels good, everybody would feel good doing it. I don't know that it's going to tell us anything we don't know. I'm not sure what the problem they're solving is. What is the purpose of this committee using $150,000 to talk about curriculum and equity, and our problem is money.
Something the educational establishment is already charged with doing.
Yes.
May I present you all with an alternative?
Yes.
I just want to take this off the table.
Okay.
This is a starting point. This is for you all to give me direction. So if I have not included something or I have not missed the mark, I will add it. Okay?
Okay,
So there is created the Education Finance Study Committee. Great place for you all to provide some feedback on me. To
that's
study and
pretty good.
to study and recommend changes to Vermont's education funding formula and education finance system to ensure a system that provides high quality public education and substantially equal educational opportunities to all Vermont students. You will notice that I keep using that term substantially equal educational opportunities because that is a key phrase from the Brigham decision. The study committee shall be composed of the Secretary of Education, the Commissioner of Taxes, 2 members of the House, and 2 members of the Senate. Powers and duties. The study committee shall study the efficacy and potential equity gains of changes to the education funding system. Committee's recommendations shall be intended to result in an educational funding system designed to afford substantially equal access to a high-quality education in accordance with Brigham. So in developing the recommendations, the committee shall align with recommendations of Vermont's educational policies, base any analysis and recommendations for base funding on the evidence-based model developed by the Picus report. That's a maybe.
I don't know that we have not seen the Picus own report. The committee knows nothing about Larry Picus.
Great, then we can take that out. There are reports that are several years old from him.
Yes. Oh, keep going.
Yep,
That's
seek input from key stakeholders and review implementation of recent education funding legislation, the same acts we just walked through. Recommendations. I just threw these in.
okay.
This is what will need a lot of work. So what should the allowable uses of the ed fund be in order to ensure sustainable and equitable use of state funds? A method for setting tax rates to sustain the education finance system, which shall be set in advance of budget cycles to allow taxpayers and school officials to anticipate tax rates prior to finalizing school district budgets. The source of revenue for categorical and there should be the word aid there, and other state obligations on the ed fund. How to create non-operating districts that tuition their students to public and approved independent schools outside of the district. And add
Can you back that one up again?
how to treat non-operating districts that tuition their students to public and approved independent schools outside of the district. Yep. An adequate and sustainable excess spending reserve amount within the ed fund, including recommendations for when excess reserve amounts could be transferred to a school construction aid special fund. Cost containment mechanisms, including use of an excess spending penalty or allowable growth rates.
Keep going, but this is not hitting what I.
Great, then do you want to just stop and start giving me some recommendations?
So,
I think it's a.
I'm sure.
Oh, I
This-
just want to get our work done.
This describes what we do now,
Yes,
basic.
yes.
So that's not what this is being put together to do what we do now.
Right, I think what I want to say, I hope the committee wants to say is we recognize the importance of the public school system and we recognize the necessity. You know, you can put in all the wonderful stuff in the first section, in section 1. Unfortunately, the cost of a good public education system is becoming unaffordable for many Vermonters. And so we want this commission to look at the causes of the unaffordability.
low incomes.
It may be low incomes, and we talked about ways to bring Vermont. I think we know part of the major cost problem. It's not that we're paying our teachers too much and we started providing an Ivy League education. or prep school education, even though at least one of our schools has spending per pupil that would pay for prep school tuition. We know Vermont has much smaller size schools and classes. Larry Pike has had to do a whole separate calculation because Vermont is so small. We don't fit in any of the national norms. So I think if we say, how could we bring our class size and school size up to the national norms for a high quality education? And
I think that's what section 1 is trying to do, right?
okay, and
So
I think we need to be very directive this time. We are speaking with a current crisis, which we have a property tax rate this year that is going, it's going to increase our homeless. I mean, a 15% rent increase when it's already gone up $1,000 in 3 years. $1,000, $2,000 increase to your property tax when you're on a fixed income, or you're leveraged to the hilt because you just bought a house and you're paying 50% of your income for it. People are gonna get hurt. This is a crisis this year. We just can't raise enough money to buy it down. We've been looking all week. We can't find it. And nobody feels good about the little bit we've been able to find. So we need to deal with that issue. And we've done enough studies to know that we don't need to study it again. We know that when you've got a school with 34 kids in it, you're paying a principal and teachers and, probably a school nurse and a curriculum coordinator and a behavioral interventionist. That's just not economically viable.
Okay, so may I make a suggestion?
Yes.
I can write all of that into a study.
It's better.
No, I'm saying I can write all those words, right?
Yeah.
And the study committee is gonna say, well, we don't quite understand what you want us to do. What is our deliverable to
I
you?
think the deliverable would be, and I'm looking to Randy, a plan to move Vermont towards a more sustainable education system in relation to class size, school size, personnel. We have the highest per pupil to staff ratio. We're off the charts on that one. We're the second highest per pupil expenditures. Only New York beats us, and we're told that's because they pay their teachers better.
So then do you just want, instead of giving very specific details, concepts, do you just want to say that the study committee shall present a plan to move towards a more sustainable and affordable educational system, and then in relation to, and then specify some categories, and then call it a day? Is that what we're looking at?
I think there needs to be more specificity, otherwise we're gonna get mush.
Okay, so let's talk about that specificity.
Before we do that,
Mhm.
I worry about our capacity to wordsmith at 8:30 on Friday. I'm wondering if we could spend a little bit of time talking about voting this out to appropriations and working on the wording. And I will just put on the table that I think this first study in the commission is pretty good. It's a pretty good start. A lot of people worked on it.
Yeah, but the problem is when you try to match that with affordability, you're gonna go off in two different directions.
So maybe we can take one section of it that we feel like is our responsibility and improve that. maybe we
If I
do
do
that tonight
everything
or
in
not, but like,
item one
need
at a
some
cost
direction.
equivalent equal to
yeah,
no more than X number of dollars in 2025.
yes,
At
like a percent increase or something, but maybe we want metrics.
And I'm not saying
maybe
that's
a
the
lot of
answer,
it,
but I do
but-
believe that that's are the answer. We've got to be specific. So what are the targets that they're looking to achieve?
Can we all just speak to our capacity to accomplish that tonight? I don't know what the plan is for the arc of this
I have
conversation.
1 hour on Monday. I was going to let our people draft, come in and vote it out
Mhm.
so that approps can take a look at it. If,
That
Yes.
wouldn't work. Because it would have to be on notice and then approps would have to
Okay.
bump it a day, so it
so
has to be
it has
today.
to come out tonight.
Right, so we could vote it and keep working on this.
I mean, I don't know about keep work, I mean, that.
I mean,
that's really
No, we're gonna do
Okay.
it tonight.
Okay.
And we're going to do the study that reflects the issues we've been dealing with. We just spent 4 days trying to find some money to buy down the property tax. That's our new base. All right, so all those folks that can't pay it next year are going to see if by some miracle, we go back to the traditional 3 or 4% next year and the next year and the next year. And I don't think there's any way it's going back to 3 or 4%.
So when I look at that large commission, I don't think we're gonna stop the momentum that has from a lot of people who've worked on it. So if I could just suggest we take the one piece that's about finance and work within the existing language there. I'm just gonna say, I'm not comfortable creating a whole new task force with 5 members out of whole cloth and expecting that we're gonna get that right tonight. I think people were tired on a finance and resources section, and I will take that.
We have tonight. So I'm concerned that our section is at the end. And by the time we go through the glories of our public education system and how we can make it more equitable and how we can make it more beautiful and how we can provide a better education. And then you get to the end and you say, oh, by the way, how are you gonna pay for it? Our problem is we can't pay for it now. And it's a waste of time to talk about these other things until we can figure out how we can pay for this. Because we can't, or many of us can't, the poorest of us can't, those that are struggling. All your BIPOC people that are struggling aren't gonna be able to pay a 15, even if we've got it to 12% increase in your property tax.
And that increase needs to be moderated for the next year. In other words, that should be treated as a hump, not as a norm to go from the course.
Beautiful message.
But that,
That's what we're being asked to do.
yeah,
How do you
Yeah.
cut the rations?
that's
Is
right.
that? Is that what?
But our system requires the local districts to cut the rations. I mean, of a similar mind to Senator Ron Hinsdale, that there is a lot of good work in here that I would be comfortable with tweaking it. And I do have tweaks to address the concerns that I think Senator Brock has raised. And I think to just make sure we ground this very wide, expansive vision with the reality of we can't afford it all. And that's why I put some language together, which just adds cost containment and very specifically for the language you were showing, which I like. I just had some very key recommendations on more granular excess spending thresholds on types of spending I would like them to look into. I'd also love to see staff to pupil ratios, reporting and transparency. So I'm not saying we set a mandate, but I
We know
want to
what
see.
that is.
I have not seen a report showing on each school what it is.
Oh, in each school,
Yeah,
we
so-
know what our staff to student ratio is,
For the whole
it's the
state.
highest in the country.
But I would like to see it per school in a different category as part of the charge for this. And then lastly, the property tax credit thresholds adjustments to probably better match need to the benefits. Those are specifics
Okay,
that I
so
was gonna
how are
say.
any of those things going to give us a plan to allow people to afford their property taxes next year, when we've already blown every revenue source we can get to buy them down this year?
Well,
Next year, they're going up. That, what did we just buy it down? 5 cents, 4 cents? We just bought it down. Next year, they're going up again. And we don't have any more revenues, and don't have the money to fill the hole this.
I just see this whole education system in Vermont as this huge, massive ship. And what I'm proposing here is just some things to look at cost containment to steer the ship systematically, gradually over the years to come. I don't think we're gonna fix it between now and next year.
No, we are not tonight, but
Yeah.
what I hope to come out with is a plan on how we fix it. You're asking for some specific information
Be
that
included.
might inform that plan.
Yeah.
But what we need is a plan, not of the glorious future of education, but on the future of how we pay for it.
This ties into that.
And I don't, and it's, we can look at the formula, but the formula may disconnect some people from their voting. What it's doing is killing the 4 towns that aren't voting to go up, and yet their budgets, their bills are going up because everybody else is. We need a plan on how we're going to get control of the cost of education.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I understand the importance of deadlines, they discipline us, they keep you on task. But there's a problem with the deadline also, which,
Tell the person in the corner.
a problem with the deadline.
Thank
Is that when you're coming up on a hard and fast deadline, you then have to start making choices about what part of the
Yeah.
job you're not going to do.
That's right.
Okay, that this, and I would like a better report. I think we have to defer to the education committee. Their work also, for one thing,
I have a good feeling
we all know,
people will get some-
we all know a study is a booby prize. It is, the study is saying, okay, you had a job to do, you didn't do it, we'll do a study. And that's, I would say that virtually every study that I've ever seen come out of the legislature in my 35 years. And the fact is, this is not a bad study. I would make some changes. I would definitely make changes.
Is
But I think what we have to do,
necessary
if I may
study.
finish, what the tax committee has to do, coming up on a deadline, is put together the tax power of this bill.
No, our job is, we are trying to solve a problem. We have band-aided it. We can band-aid it and we can go home, and next year we're gonna be back here peeling off this Band-Aid and trying to find a bigger Band-Aid to put on it. And you can do that. Our job is to find out why things are going up and to find a solution to that. If you're just gonna say, all we have to do is write the check and never keep asking why the check is going up every year, then I think we're derelict.
That is a position in which you and I are in total agreement, looking at the calendar and seeing that it's March 1st. But it's not March 1st.
No,
We have, and I, for one, would suggest that we wrap it up now, go home for the weekend, and put off the deadline for adjourning. That's not on the table. We're not going to put off the agenda,
that's,
which means we have a deadline now that we have to get done what we can do before the deadline.
then we
which is
strip
a-
out section 1 because it's a waste of money. Strip it out. If we've got $150,000 sitting around, I don't wanna spend it having a bunch of people come back and tell us we're gonna have wonderful new curriculum and we need to hire 22 more teachers with master's plus degrees in order to do a high, because we don't have the money. And if you want to tell them to come back and study these things within the reality of you can't add another cent for everything you want to add, you have to subtract something or find a revenue source for it, then it's worth doing. But just to spend $150,000 to do a study of what's going on within the classroom and how we make it better, That's not
That's not
our
what this is
problem.
about. We're not trying to make anything better in the classroom.
No,
We're trying to decide how many people get thrown out the light bulb. That's our job, is austerity.
This committee's job is to figure out how to pay.
We're being asked to
Okay,
recommend
actually,
what will the
I'm getting
austerity
set to
be?
send everybody home.
Sure.
I'm serious. We have reached the point where I don't think anybody's going to reach anything.
But you can send folks home with a charge to create some sort of a document, some sort of a plan, some sort of a, how do we put in words briefly what it is that we want to do as a charge regarding getting cost control, getting costs in line, getting us to a system that Vermonters can afford. How do we do that? How do we do that now? That's, I think,
And
the
that's what
charge
I
that we
would
could
like
do
you
and
all
come
to
back
bring
on
back.
Monday.
How
So
do we get?
we cannot leave here without voting.
Yeah.
If you are not comfortable with the language that is in the studies right now, take it out. And
I can't vote for this without some path forward to make sure we are not here doing the same thing again.
May I make a motion? I think what I would love is to mold this with the changes we made and the language we don't like with the following caveat. We meet Monday, okay, and then we as a committee come up with a floor amendment that would change either striking section 1 or with new language that I will spend the weekend offering this, but we move the.
No, we're gonna work on this. I would like to charge Beth to come back with another study that would be focused on the affordability, not the gloriousness, but the affordability of our education system. That's our problem first and foremost. That's the finance committee's problem. We are responsible for the ed fund.
Agreed.
And for maintaining the ed fund and for maintaining the affordability for our people. That's the study I want to see. And I think we should strike section 1. Vote it, and we can come back and work on a floor amendment. We will be back here at noon on Monday. And we will stay until we are finished.
I agree with some of that. I just don't think it's fair to strike the hard work of a lot of other folks until and unless we can replace
You
it.
do that all the time. We struck out half of the Natural Resources Committee's work on the housing bill. I mean, that's.
I said unless we have something that can replace it.
That's what we're going to do. We're going
But
to
why would we strike it now in the hopes that we're gonna replace it on
because
Monday?
that's the bill that's going to go to the floor.
And we can't vote for section 1 alone as it is.
That's right.
Shall we make motions? So somebody move to strike section 1, we take a vote, and then we go from there? I would move to strike section 1.
Senator, Sir Clerk, have you got a sheet?
Yes. I mean, I was just looking to see where the section.
I'm gonna vote against this, but I'm fine if you all vote to remove it.
I don't know if you, if
Okay.
you're gonna vote against it, then there's no sense even.
Discussion, because we also have the, because we've done this in other committees. You pass the bill with the understanding you're gonna be offering floor amendments. The floor amendment could be to strike this language and
Yes.
replace it with.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do.
Rather than insult our colleagues.
I'm not gonna go,
That's right.
had some people into the
The
weekend
committee
thing.
is adjourned. Everybody go home. Beth, can you get us some language to consider on Monday?
Yes, with more direction.
Okay.
It's
I-
way not fair.
To be quite honest.
we cannot leave without voting.
Yeah.
This is not a
Okay.
pro tem's office thing, this is a calendar thing. We cannot leave here without voting this.
I would move to pass this bill with the changes we made tonight.
Well, you have to move to amend the bill with, that isn't a strike all, is it? Kirby, is it?
I did do a strike call just to give you the flexibility to change what you want, easier to track.
Okay,
That's okay.
So move the
That's what
strike.
he's moving.
I would move the strike all amendment draft.
It has to be has it been edited? It needs to be edited.
Pending edits, can we do like a,
I mean,
We can vote it in concept, the edits will come back.
Are the editors still on?
yes,
Yes.
We send it to them and I'll just relax and talk about what we're gonna do the rest of the weekend while we
We
wait.
can vote the bill exactly as it is with the understanding that we're going to be amending it on. And then we don't have to wait for editing or.
No, the bill exactly as it is, as it came from the House, reflects nothing we've done. It would just, we would have wasted the whole week
Well,
making changes.
And I think Approach needs to see the changes that we agreed to earlier. So if anything, we're just hunting for a floor amendment to rethink
Folks
the
needs
study.
to work on something, and maybe approach will take out the money. And then we won't have to worry about section one.
There you go.
Okay. So you have moved that,
I can tell you the changes that I have, and I can send this. I don't know the protocol in the first year, if it's okay for you to do a vote and then for me to send it to editing, I would defer.
With that has happened in my experience.
I think we do
Yeah.
But so what you have to be, people come back, there will be a final version that goes up,
Mhm.
will get edited tonight, it will go up to the Senate
Right.
Secretary. So you will, it
So
will get.
unedited, but as amended.
No, it will get edited, we will, move to pass it, he will work on it, he will send it to the editor, if you will have a version that gets then delivered
with
to
the
the.
amendments we have made. And if-
I can tell you, if you would like me to run through,
Yeah.
we've done it over here, but I mean, we were just waiting to see what changed.
With a screen share, if you got it done, throw it up there and then we. Can we order some beer?
Just not in.
You can be talking about this for years to come, voters let me come back. Yeah, yield bill, Friday night.
Appreciate your effort. Great stuff.
Let's
Thank-
plan on this again here from today.
There you go. The voters will love me.
It's too long today.
And for the record, I've had really bad Friday nights. This has been fun.
I missed my third bedtime.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Or Ms. Chair, so she saw stuff.
She'll be.
I think I'm screen sharing.
What's the name of the something education, there's something educational, excellence statement.
EOP, the educational opportunity payment.
Oh,
Yes.
the educational opportunity pay.
That was something
I
I.
like
hope
learning McDonald's. speak.
Pardon?
I know,
She meant.
that was something that would get studied.
Well, here from what we agreed to earlier. Which is what he's gonna show us right now.
Then,
Okay, so with I'm gonna jump into the yield part because it's the first area. The yields have been updated to reflect the revenue changes that you had me make earlier. So I don't know if you want to know the numbers, the property dollar yield will now be $10,005.
that isn't that,
The income yield would be 10,226. And the homestead rate would be 1.407.
wait, I realize that those are not, keep going through there, those numbers need to be updated again.
Okay,
Is this for the,
We'll do it real time. I mean, this is the yield bill. Just tell them what it's gotta be.
well, this is,
Okay.
this is coming fall.
So it should be, I gave him the wrong non-homestead rate. Because I gave him the one for the striped, that included the property tax credit. Okay, so that's my mistake. The non-homestead rate, if for the uniform average bill change of 12.5%. Should be $1.375.
okay, so that's. I guess
My
that's what we-
apologies.
this hour of the night?
So those are the yields, the subdivision 4, which is from, in the House version, is gone here. That is the the percentage increase for the property, tax credits. We have a trim down definition, change intentional personal property that, for, current software access remotely. We still have the repeal. In the short term, or in the short term rental impact surcharge is 3% instead of 1.5.
We're not making any other changes to this section.
The other change is in effective dates for this. The effective date is going to be August 1st.
Okay.
And the thing is the excess spending
Got that?
percent is 116. And that's. I wanna double check the effective date on for section 18. Yeah, that's gonna be effective July 1st.
The draft number,
Draft 2.1.
so the motion I would move is move draft 2.1 of bill H887, timestamp 8:44 AM. But
PM.
PM, it says AM.
I'm just,
Just say,
I'm just gonna say one thing, he's gonna have it edited, so you might just say
Pending it.
pending.
Yeah, did you drop section 1?
no,
You left it as a,
that's.
as a.
No, I don't know if I heard it.
Okay,
Okay. Right here.
okay. So we have Senator Chittenden has moved that we approve draft number 2.1 of H887 pending edit. Is there any further discussion?
Draft 2.1, got a time on that?
8:44 PM.
All right. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. I'm hearing that 610,
601.
601. Okay, and I'm gonna report this.
I would also now move that the committee moves the bill as amended favorably.
While we're here, why don't we just put in next year's yield? At a dollar fee, at a percentage that we think is saves us enough money.
I don't know if we can bind the hands of the future legislature.
Yes.
Well, it would be announced on the first of
Senator, I'm gonna
December.
declare you out of order.
It would be,
I have a
Announced on the first
motion
of
on the
December.
floor.
I move the bill favorably as amended.
Okay. Senator Chittenden has moved that we vote the bill favorably as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Is that a,
It's a yes with reluctance, that's why it was so quiet.
I think several of us were quiet. Okay. We are adjourned, you can go home.
Thank you for.
I will see you at noon on Monday.
I'm gonna need some more direction.
Are you staying till the consent?
What time are you starting on?